Well, Niall, I gave you a little bit of an introduction there when we spoke. You were the compere of the event,
Mm.
and you were also a speaker at the event, and you were extremely busy on the day. And so when you got back at night, you must have thought, "Goodness me, that was a very exciting day." You've had a few days to think about it. What are
Mm.
your initial thoughts on how it went?
Um, upon reflection, I think there was a couple surreal events that happened that day that I didn't think would be that would have happened. But um, on reflection, I think it's been a tremendous success. It's ended up. If I could show this one picture again. So while I'm speaking, I'll just show this picture again.
Uh-huh.
And I think overall, no fights broke out, no scuffles broke out. It was generally well contained. I thought the police done a fantastic job at one, setting up the square, and two, actually policing the square. It was the first political sort of rally, political event, protest that I thought would uh, could potentially result in violence. Actually, Alistair.
Mhm.
It's the very first one that I thought could result in violence, and that was just careering through my mind. All the days prior to it, all the lead up to it, especially given the whole the media portrayal the event had, which was just diabolical. Alistair, you were a victim of it as well, as were the other speakers. The whole event was condemned before it even began, and yeah, we still managed to make a success out of it, Alistair. So this is the thing. It feels like uh, despite the full weight of the Scottish government and their tendrils and their NGOs, their influence with the trade unions, all the charities that they influence, we still managed to get our message across. And still, if I could bring up the image again, it's such a great image. This
Yeah,
bring
I'll get rid of
it's
this.
yeah. So I think this image is quite an important image going forward. I think what's happened here is, I mean, the side of the square that's most filled with people. You alluded to the fact that most of a lot of them would be just people having a wee drink on a Saturday afternoon in the square at the back there. But this whole like top half of the image represents all the government interests.
Mhm.
All the NGOs, all their the political tendrils and all their charities, all their the trade unions, and the our half represent hardworking people who just want an end to this the madness that is illegal and mass immigration, and really to have an event like this portrayed as a hate rally, even Susan Aitken going so far as to describe it as race hate ideology. I thought was just it's a step too far in the other direction, Alistair. It's a huge step too far in the other direction to describe it as race hate ideology. It's absolutely bonkers, and to have a politician, a mainstream politician in Glasgow, leader of Glasgow City Council, I think, or maybe she's just changed her position, but. Susan Aitken is definitely a prominent voice in Glasgow, and for her to just unilaterally condemn all the attendees, all the speakers as ideology of hatred and race hatred is just beyond the pale. And if you think about just Hamza Yousaf's famous hate crime bill that made it through the Parliament, one would expect that this qualifies as stirring up hatred, Alistair. One would expect, because, I mean, surely your political beliefs, your political are, a protected characteristic, or you'd think that having a view that mass immigration is terrible for any country, that is somehow connected to racial hatred, race hate ideology, it's simply beyond the pale, Alistair. I'm not willing to accept that. So I think, you know, there should be potential for litigation against Susan Aitken, the way that she's portrayed the entire event and all the attendees. I think it is a step too far. I think it's, like I said before, it surely meets the qualifier of stirring up hatred against a group of people, Alistair.
Well, it's a very good point that you make, and there's been a little bit of discussion about this. I won't get into it at the moment among the Scottish political class and especially the journalist class about the extent to which they can actually and should actually make gross generalizations about groups of people, especially around these so-called far-right slurs. And that's maybe something that I'll look into and try to develop, explain a little bit more at another time. But it's certainly not right to, when you're faced with 500 people like that in a square, all of whom is basically just working class people from Glasgow, and to, well, I don't know, I suppose accuse is the correct word, to accuse them of extreme views in that way, or to use phrases that everybody knows are intended to demonize, is really not acceptable behavior among especially not among politicians who should know better and who are meant in their role, whatever their political party may be, who are meant to represent everybody, especially Susan Aitken, who's the head of Glasgow City Council.
It's just sheer ignorance from
Susan
Aitken, but it seems like it's it's purposeful ignorance, Alistair.
Yes, I think it's purposeful rather than ignorance. I think she knows what she's doing, and she's trying to scare away. She's trying to scare away as many people as possible from getting behind what's being said. And this is why it's so important that we thought we have to get these videos on camera from beginning to end, and we need to get them up onto YouTube and onto the social media platforms for the public record, which is what we're doing. We've rolled out the first one today by Johnny Mcginty, which is an excellent speech, and I wonder how many views it's got. As I say, it's gone up. The views have been rising, and I notice he's now at 240 views, and that's just a couple of hours ago. So that's excellent for that sort of thing, and that's just on YouTube, but we'll be putting them out on all the other platforms as well. So it's deliberate, and it does have an effect. Unfortunately, people do see that and they do get scared away. And the thing is, I think about this quite a bit. And what would happen if everybody just keeps getting scared away from discussing this matter, which is exactly what the media and the politicians want to happen? Well, the country will just get destroyed. The country is doomed. And so in the beginning, I think it was Mark Twain said something to the effect that the patriot is a scarce man because it's a serious, it costs you, but ultimately everybody becomes a patriot when there's no cost attached. And I think at the beginning of this particular event, it's people like you and I and the 500 others who are out with us who are the bold and the brave, as I mentioned on the day. And next time around, there'll be more people who say, you know what, it's I'm going to come along anyway. And I would say this to people who like, well, I'm not that sort of person, and they might not like some of the people who are there. But, well, if you don't, I mean, the way you change that is you make sure there's more people like you who are going to turn up. So you bring along lots and lots of people that you would like to be there. And then when you look around, it'll all be people like that are like you, you know, that the future belongs to those who show up, and it doesn't belong to those who are too timid about it, unfortunately for them. The future belongs to those who show up, and people like you and I and others have been showing up for a long time.
It's again, the huge pressure, the huge weight of pressure that was put on myself. I'm sure you did as well. I'm sure Craig Houston faced a lot of pressure as well. And we had other speakers lined up, Alistair, who did in fact bow to the pressure and cancel their appearance. And this is sheerly, just entirely down to the media's portrayal of the event. But again, there needs to be people that forge this, that forge the way on this, that are the tip of the spear. And I'm not afraid to be labelled in such a fashion. This is the thing; it doesn't matter if Susan Aitken stands up there and labels you, a fascist, far right bigot, or whatever it is that she comes to her mind. These labels, they don't. I don't identify with the labels. I know who I am, and I don't need someone to tell me who I am. But this, just the sheer, if you're going to show up at this rally as a speaker, you are going to be branded by the media, by the politicians, as far right, as a bigot, as as race hate ideology, which is, it shuts down the argument before you even begin. So I mean, it's like they've positioned their whole narrative that we can't talk about mass immigration, Alistair. That we it's the whole subject is verboten. That any talk of anti-immigration sentiment is therefore race hate ideology. It's far right bigotry, and you don't support the country. When in reality, it's the opposite view. It's the dilution of our culture. It's the radical increase in crime, the endangering of British citizens, the shortage in housing, the sort of weight on the economy that it brings. That if you are actually advocating for that, you are in no way wanting to heal the country. You're in no way wanting to improve the lives of British citizens. If you support this mass immigration. So it's been totally turned in the opposite direction, Alistair, where our position, the correct position, and it's an unassailably correct position to be, that this is somehow verboten, that this is a far right sentiment, when it isn't far right to demand that the streets are safe. It's not far right sentiment to demand that the boats stop. I said in my speech that if we can't stop the boats entering our country, we don't have a country. It's similar to what Trump said in America. If we don't have borders, we don't have a country.
That's right. That's right. And you made that point very well in your speech, which we'll be putting out later this week. And you called it, I watched it again this afternoon, unbridled insanity, I think was the phrase that you used to describe what's going on. And you're absolutely right. Unless we can get this under control, and we don't really have a country to speak of. Mm-hmm. And I would also, one of the things that I said in the speech as well, which I think we want to keep emphasizing, is that kind of Scottish politics is going through a bit of a change at the moment as new issues become more obvious to us. The SNP are always going to be there. The Scottish so-called nationalists are always going to be there. I think they're losing a little bit of steam at the moment. But what I would say to them is that if you are a Scottish nationalist, surely you also care about the borders of Scotland. Surely you also care about Scotland remaining a Scottish country. And so on this matter, at least, Scottish nationalists, so-called, and Scottish unionists can get together and can agree on these matters. And it's for us to, in our own ways, to push our politicians to, including the SNP politicians, to take heed of these facts and to address them and to stop all the fake progressiveness. I was reading this article here from this was in the Daily Telegraph. It says, "Wake up, Tories! Scotland is a conservative small C country." by Tim Stanley. And he suspects that Humza Yousaf sunk in the polls because, quote, Scottish progressivism is only skin deep. In a few days north of the border, I must have spoken with a dozen SNP and Labour supporters, and not one of them was left wing. There was a teacher who complained about ill discipline, a journalist who moaned that you can't sack bad teachers, and the nationalist who said Scotland doesn't attract many immigrants, but if it did, he'd rather they stayed away. The SNP can afford to claim Scotland is open to all because so few want to come. And he goes, parts of it are poor and underpopulated. Around 93% of this quote-unquote rainbow nation is actually white. Much of Scotland looks and feels like England 30 years ago. And I know exactly what he means by that.
Yeah.
And there's far too many Scottish nationalists living in their comfy middle-class abodes in Mcginty and elsewhere, not understanding what's happening in the big cities anymore, and not getting it at all. But I think more and more people are waking up, and it's our job to make them wake up. Do you think that we should be taking this message further forward in other ways?
So you correctly pointed out that that Saturday the 7th, was exactly 20 months to the day.
20 months to the 7th of May, 2026.
Where we will be due another Scottish election. And this momentum that we've gathered from this rally, it needs to be taken forward right into the Scottish election. I despise the way that the politicians in Scotland campaign. It's absolutely horrendous. They'll campaign for 2 months prior to the election, and then they'll down tools. It's because that's the only work that they need to do, Alistair, especially Scottish nationalist politicians. They'll campaign for 2 months prior to the election, and then once they've won, that's them eating shortcake and fancy lunches for the next 5 years. And this is the thing. Whereas we end up getting stuck with substandard, lackluster politicians for 5 years because we are not busy enough, because we sort of down tools as well in amongst this lull in between elections, but we can't allow it to happen like that anymore. So all this time that we've got during elections needs to be used very, very wisely in campaigning. So what we'll be doing is we'll likely put out a wee roadmap of rallies to come. So I suspect that we can get another 4 rallies at bare minimum in amongst this 20 months period. So every 5 months, you should expect another rally along similar nature. But again, we want to, add more to it. I mean, we've got the anti-immigration stance, which is just, it's almost universal. If you don't already support the anti-immigration message, then you will in time. Just like this article you just read out, Scotland looks like England 30 years ago. Well, look 30 years into the future. And see what Scotland's going to look like. If you want to look 30 years in the future, just look at a place like Birmingham or Bradford or any of these places. That's what Scotland will look like in 30 years' time at current rate. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. The criminality is going to spiral out of control. We've already got an overburdened prison system here in Scotland, where incredibly we've got judges sentencing people not on the severity of their crimes, Alistair, but they're sentencing people based on the capacity of our prisons at the moment. It's so bad. It's so clogged up that people with severe crimes could end up avoiding a sentence, custodial sentence, just purely because we've not got enough space in the prisons. So
yes,
we've got a lot of things to look. I was going to say forward to, but we've got a lot of things not to look forward to if we continue the current trends. I would expect our momentum to gather over these 4 or 5 rallies in between now and then, to the point where we're vastly outnumbering all, you know, the sort of numbers that the counter protest got at the weekend.
Yes.
And the counter protest, I mean, let's be honest, Alistair, it represents, that is the tendrils of the Scottish government, and they are pushing the Scottish government message. You're talking trade unions, NGOs, charities, activists, all the people that are surreptitiously in the employ of the Scottish government via policy making. You know, it's just similarly to how we've got LGBT Youth Scotland, who are handed a huge, big, massive portion of public money in order to sort of conduct their activities. And then part of their activities is then again providing sort of policy ideas to the Scottish government in a backwards fashion. So it's like this circular thing where they're paying for the policy that they want to implement. And this is the exact same thing with these NGOs and charities that are pro-immigration. They are paying them guys so that they can promote this pro-immigration message and on behalf of the Scottish government.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a good point. These groups they're paid by us, the taxpayers, through the government. The government gives them money ostensibly for refugees, to help refugees or whatever. But these are activist groups who also have an agenda to promote the asylum system and to promote mass immigration and so on. And so it's all very parasitic. And there's also, as you say, the ideological element whereby these parasite organizations are also creating policy and suggesting policy to the lawmakers, who then do what these organizations that are getting paid by our money want to do. We're totally up against it in that sense. And so the good thing from Saturday's rally is that's the power that we were up against, but they still didn't really get more than three times what we got. And we have, like, literally, people don't understand. We have nothing. I mean, we have nothing. These are multi-100,000, sometimes multi-million pound organizations with salaried staff. Everybody there on Saturday from our side we're just doing it for nothing. We're doing it because we love our country. Mm-hmm. But it's not like it's not like it pays us to do it. All we get is the slings and arrows of the media and politicians attacking us. So if we can still get that number on literally nothing, imagine what we could get if we keep working on this. We'll continue to work on nothing, mm-hmm. I should say, but they're not going to really rise much further, whereas we've got potentially the ability to grow very much.
Just the mass printing of placards, the ready availability of placards, the wee stages that they've got, all of this costs money, and it costs a lot of money as well. So I mean, I suspect that at a bare minimum, just the materials alone on their side of the fence cost easily in excess of £10,000. And really, what we've got is a speaker and a microphone. Alistair. We are as bare bones as it's going to get, and you think you wouldn't want it any other way, Alistair. You know what I mean? It's people power and the weight of people's sentiment that carries us onward, and that's all it is. And you can see there are no paid people on our side. We have no funding. You don't get funding for telling the truth, Alistair.
That's right. You don't get funding to save the country at all. That's for sure. I think what we will look to is we will put our heads together. We'll think about you and me and others. We'll decide, have a rough road plan of where we're going to do rallies, how we're going to do them, when we're going to do them. We'll look into developing some kind of PA system with our own transport to get it in and out, because that's also a big problem as well. Just getting a PA system into George Square. Cars are banned from George Square, so you need a works van, and that's to I presume to get it in. I think that would be compatible with the bus lanes or whatever it is. But So there's all these logistical challenges
Mhm.
that we're all challenged on, you know, to do, which we will do, which we will succeed in doing. And it's exciting to think about the potential for that to grow. But listen, all I would say to people who want to know more is just watch this space. You know, we are known, Niall, you're also known as well for doing things correctly, carefully, professionally, and always successfully. So we're not going to start out on anything half-assed, as they
No.
say. We're going to ensure that if we decide to do something, that we do acquire somehow the resources to do it, and we will do it. And I think that the people who will be sitting being very worried at the moment will be the NGOs thinking, oh no. But at the same time, they're also going to be quite happy because they'll use us as an excuse to raise even more
Yeah, of
money for
course.
themselves off the
Yeah.
back of the British taxpayer.
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah.
that unfortunate fact, but that's just the way the world works at the moment.
I mean, there's a few surreal moments for me when I was stood up there addressing the crowd. And, you know, it's not just our crowd we were addressing, Alistair, was it? It was just beyond our crowd, just over the, you know, the tipsy people. We've got the other crowd. And, you know, they're trying, as much as we're trying to shut us down, Alistair, we were getting across to them as well. Right.
Yeah,
And I could see there was a couple surreal moments where I could see in people's faces that were right in the opposite end, our square, that were counter protesting. I could see in their faces that they agreed wholeheartedly with what I was saying. You could just see the connection in the eyes, you know, a few paces, and then you've got the odd person just grinning maniacally at you, and it's this, you know, delight of being in opposition to someone that you know is the right thing. You know, it's this duplicitousness. I see Johnny Mcginty on Facebook. All of you guys, 100%. Let's take it to the next level for the next rally. Absolutely, Johnny. And can I just congratulate you on your speech, my friend? It's not easy jumping up on stage and addressing a big crowd like that, Johnny, but you've done it well. And I hope to see you again in the future, my man. It's one of these things, Alistair. It's just if we didn't do it, I got phone calls. There he is. I was getting phone calls right up to the day before, saying, "Niall, pull out, Niall. There will be ramifications if you do not pull out." And I'm saying, it's at the same time, I'm like, no, somebody has to do it. Somebody has to stand up there and do it. It's not enough to just cry on Twitter, to just moan about it, and just put wee tweets here and there. We have to actually physically get mobile and get on the streets. And it's one of these things that's, I just couldn't believe the level of pressure people were facing in order to pull out of this, Alistair. They really did pull out all the stops, which includes the, you know, all their counter protests, the fact that it was advertised even on Clyde One and stuff. You know, turn up to the anti-racism rally. Who can say no to that, Alistair? You know what I mean? Let's say, like, seriously. I mean, who can say, oh, there's racists going to be turning up at George Square? Well, I'm against that. Of course they're going to show up. So even despite all this nonsense, we still managed to get a really successful day. I thought that there was potential flashpoints that happened. The Green Brigade coming up that street was, I don't think it was a mistake at all. I think it was all orchestrated to come up that street. I think if things had gotten out of control then of course, this is what the government want, Alistair. The government want to say, oh, yeah, violence broke out. Of course, violence broke out at the far right rally. Of course, it broke out. Just to sort of, you know, like destroy the message at the end of the day. You know, and it would have destroyed the message, Alistair, if any violence at all had broken out. That would have been the headline.
Well, that's right. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. We were asked, you know, the police asked myself and my colleagues who were handling the PA cabinets to, at a certain point, to start to pack up because we wanted the square to be kind of cleared. And so we did so, obviously, straight away. And we headed off down onto Ingram Street. And meanwhile, I don't know if there had been a breakdown in communication, but the police unkettled the Green Brigade. So myself and 3 colleagues were pushing the trolley with a PA system and so on. We turn onto Ingham Street. We're walking down Ingham Street. Who's coming up towards us? Just like on the whole road coming towards us, these 50 guys from the Green Brigade with all the like a black masks on and everything. And we're like, oh. And I just said, look, we just have to like walk straight through them. Okay, we can't like turn and try to go down another street or whatever. We're totally trapped there. So we just walked straight through them and they're like, oh, they're letting us through. And I don't think they weren't thinking that it was us. And to be frank, I don't think they even cared. They were only there to shout at some of the people from the Rangers football group. Well, I think that was the only reason that they were there. And the thing is, a lot of these guys, don't tell me they want mass immigration. I mean, any Irishman from the Republic of Ireland that I've ever met, and I've met an awful lot, I wouldn't say they're exactly progressive on that particular matter. If you know what I'm talking about, say no more. So I don't get why they would side with the extreme left on that. I think it's just because it's a football thing.
Well, I think just to point out the absolute parallels between Sinn Féin and the SNP. You would think, just like you mentioned earlier, that a lot of Scottish nationalists, you'd think they'd be anti-immigration, just like Sinn Féin across an island, where they seem to be hemorrhaging members and hemorrhaging support purely because they're in this pro-immigration stance, which makes no sense politically for them, especially the island's going through this demographic tumult. As it were. Scotland is trying to do the exact same thing with the same tactics. So, I mean, the parallels between the SNP and Sinn Féin are undeniable.
Yes. Is that just looking at some colleagues, some comments here? Gorilla TV channel says he thinks that if the rally had been labelled an immigration control rally rather than a pro-union rally, it might have hit perhaps more with what his aim was. Good point. I think that what we'll have to consider doing as we go forward with more rallies is getting the label correct. And we need to sit down and think about that. Folks, Gorilla TV channel is a really good alternative news reporter. If you're on YouTube, please check out Gorilla TV channel for some very interesting materials. He was also at the rally and he was videoing it and did a report. And thank you, sir, for that.
It's very important to get the messaging right, Alistair. You're absolutely spot on, and it's right that Gorilla TV pointed that out. But at the same time, I'm saying to myself, it doesn't matter what we call it, Alistair. It doesn't matter what we call it, because it's going to be labelled, a Nuremberg rally. It's going to be, it's going to be labelled as fascist and right wing, regardless of what we call it. It really doesn't.
That's true. I suppose we want to an extent that we can appeal to the Scottish nationalists and so on. Then something like immigration control rally may be more favourable to their way of thinking. But I'm thinking out loud at the moment. This is something that we want to be talking about before we go public on the things. It's just after the top of the hour. Niall, is there anything else you want to specifically bring up on the matter?
Well, I mean, just I think upon reflection, the event in totality, I thought went absolutely fantastic. Again, it's the only event that I've been to that I thought there was a real credible threat of violence, and there had been threats made personally to me prior to even turning up. So the fact that no violence broke out, the fact I have to put my hand up and say that the police done an absolutely incredible job on the day, both by setting up perfectly, and the communication must have been spot on, because they were over in that corner. And I think if the police hadn't acted so swiftly that day, that there could have been violence broke out. So I have to commend the police and all their activities. And you know, I think it's overall it's been fantastic for us, this event. We've bore witness to the bitterness, to the bigotry, to the sheer desperation of their movement. You know, and I'm thinking of the clip of the woman from Glasgow University. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know who this was. I still don't really know her name, but she's a professor at Glasgow University, and she's demanding of the police, well, you know, get the Huns out of there. Well, and you're just like, what is this really? You know, what a professor of Glasgow University is saying to the police. Is this really where we are in 2024 in Scotland, where it's, you know, I think overall the event really did throw up a lot of negative clips for the other side, whereas you know, our side were well contained. We had fantastic speeches, and nobody really stepped out of line, I would say. So I think, I mean, it has to be repeated, Alistair. It's that good that it has to be repeated.
Yes, it was a very good start, and there was more people at it than I had expected were going to be at it, I have to say. So I was pleased about that. And it was, as you say, it was relatively peaceful. I know there had been a couple of arrests, but one of them was for something like hate speech, however you define that. I mean, goodness me, the hate speech people, the hate speech police must have been working overtime listening to the other side anyway, because the other side were chanting an awful lot of stuff that they would get in trouble for, certainly if they were in London these days. I think for me, again, the takeaways was the other side threw all the guns out, or whatever the expression is, at us, but still only did not get all that many people, actually, and at the most maybe 3 times more than us, but probably just about a little over twice what we got. They're the ones with all the money. And then when you look at the other side, you can see that it's not actually the normal people of Glasgow. It's people who have got a particular interest in it: the NGOs, the trade unions, the teachers unions, the politicians, and the usual student types who go to these things. The normal people of Glasgow were definitely on our side, in the sense of the people with serious jobs and who actually graft for a living.
I mean, just a wee bit of credit to, like, the mental strength of those on our side, those who, despite being labelled everything under the sun, they know in themselves that they are no racist, they're no far right, they're no bigot, they're not involved in racial hate, you know, race hate ideology, and despite all this, they still turned it. It's a testament to the mental strength and the sort of the principled stance that we have, that we won't be moved from.
Yes, absolutely. Niall, Sinn Féin have been called traitors by those that once supported them for the very reason you just mentioned. Yes, indeed. Yes, we've all got our troubles throughout the Western world.
There was one comment here which was highlighted there. I was there on Saturday, so thank you, Watch Bam. Well done, boys. Big Craig stole the show. I actually thought Craig's speech was fantastic. I don't know about you, Alistair, but I thought it was absolutely sublime. And you know, Craig brought a bit of humour to the event. Usually it's me that has to bring the humour, but actually Craig done it in such a fantastic way, and I love him for it. You know, he really did. He got us all laughing, basically, Alistair, didn't he? So you know, I was happy that he was there, and I was happy. You know, I'm hoping that we can get him to do these rallies in the future.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It would be fantastic, and he's a good speaker. He's able to sort his thoughts in a logical manner, which is a skill, no question about it. He's very good. Yes, we were all very good. I know it was Johnny's first time doing it. He was good, and you were excellent as well. And next time we'll definitely do our best with a PA system, but we'll need to look into all of that as well, because that's going to be an expense, and it's the logistics of moving it as well, which will be troublesome. Maybe we'll have to hire drivers or something like that. I don't know, but we'll all talk about that. We'll have to work it all out, and work it out. We will. Well, listen, if folk want to follow you, they can go to Twitter or x.com/Niall Fraser 8. Now that's NIALLFRASER numeral 8. And you're also on YouTube, and it would be great to get your YouTube channel growing. It's the Niall Fraser Show. So go to youtube.com/, and at this stage, you need to put in the little ampersand, the Niall Fraser Show, youtube.com /ampersand, the Niall Fraser Show. And good stuff on all that you do, because we need it. We need alternative media people in Scotland. We do that. We absolutely need it. And so good, Niall. I'll say good night. We'll no doubt have you back on, and we will have you back on when the group of us, have decided how we take all of this forward. So good stuff.
Thanks very much for having me, Alistair, and thanks for all the great comments, and I hope your viewers have a fantastic evening.
Great stuff. See you later.